A woman didn't come home one night. The next morning, she told her husband that she had slept over at a friend's house. The man called his wife's 10 best friends. None of them knew anything about it. A man didn't come home one night. The next morning, he told his wife that he had slept over at a friend's house. The wife called her husband's 10 best friends. 8 of them confirmed that he had slept over, and 2 said he was still there. A beggar knocked on the door of a house. "What do you want?" said the owner. "Can you spare some money to help a poor person?" said the beggar. But as soon as he was given a few coins and told to go on his way, the beggar complained, "Your son gave me twice as much when I called here last week." "Well, my son can't afford to," said the owner. "He has a very rich father." One evening, a drunk walks into a bar by chance and says to the bartender, "Drinks for all on me, including you, bartender." So the bartender follows the man's orders and says, "That will be $36.50, please." The drunk says he has no money, so the bartender slaps him around and throws him out. The next night, the same drunk comes in again and orders a drink for everyone in the bar, including the bartender. Again, the bartender follows the instructions, and again the drunk says he has no money. So the bartender slaps him around and throws him out. The third night, he comes in. The drunk orders drinks for everyone but the bartender. "What? No drink for me," replies the bartender. "Oh no, you get violent when you drink." There was a blonde who lived in a small house on the corner of 4th Avenue. She had a small shed in her backyard where she kept gardening tools. One day, she thought she saw smoke coming out of the roof of the shed. In a panic, she called 911. They answered and said, "This is Joe. Is there an emergency?" The blonde replied, "Yes, my shed is on fire." Joe said, "Don't panic. Help is on the way. Where do you live?" The blonde said, "In a house. Now hurry." Joe calmly responded, "How are we supposed to get there?" The blonde answered back, "DUH. A big red truck." I'm sure you've all heard about the traveling salesman whose car became disabled in the middle of nowhere. It took him several hours to make it to the nearest farmhouse. He finally reached their front door and knocked on it. A grizzled old farmer answered, and the salesman pleaded for a place to spend the night. "Why, sure, young fella, I can give you a place to bunk," said the hospitable old man. "But I don't have a daughter for you to sleep with, like you always hear about them in jokes." "Oh," said the salesman. Then, thinking for a moment or two, he asked, "How far is it to the next farmhouse?" A woman finds Aladdin's magic lamp. She starts rubbing it, and a genie comes out as usual. The woman looks at the genie and asks him to grant her wishes. "I want my husband to have eyes only for me. I want to be the only one in his life. I want him to always sleep by my side. I want it so that when he gets up in the morning, I'm the first thing he grabs and takes everywhere he goes." The genie turned her into a smartphone. A man walked into a pub and was approached by the bartender, who asked him what he would love to have. He answered, letting him know he would have 3 pints of beer. Attending to his order, the bartender went and returned with 3 pints of beer, and the man received it, downing each pint alternately with the other 2 until they were all finished. Once he's done, he orders another set of 3 pints. The bartender notices his weird order and gives him a piece of advice, saying, "Sir, I know you like them cold. You don't have to order 3 at a time. I can keep an eye on it, and when you get low, I'll bring you a fresh cold one." The man responds and explains that his tradition of ordering 3 pints at a time is based on a vow he made to his 2 brothers living in different countries. According to him, they promised each other always to have a drink every Saturday night and added, "Right now my brothers have 3 pints too, and we're drinking together." The bartender thought the tradition to be a delightful one and adhered to serving the man just what he ordered. Week by week went by, and the man came into the pub and ordered his usual number of drinks. One weekend he came and only ordered 2 drinks. He finished them and ordered another set of 2 drinks. Worried about the deviation from his tradition, the bartender approached the man and said, "I know your tradition, and I just want to say I'm sorry that one of your brothers has passed." To his surprise, the man replied, "Oh, my brothers are fine. I just quit drinking." Randy was in the hospital for a complete checkup. At 11 a.m., they brought him soup for lunch. He refused it. At 2 p.m., they again tried to serve him some soup, which he refused. Again, at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., they tried, and both times Randy turned down the soup, so they gave up. In preparation for the next day's test, they entered his room at 3 a.m., 4:30 a.m., and 6 a.m. and gave him an enema each time. When Randy got home from the hospital after the tests, he told his wife, "Whatever you do, if you go to that hospital and they try to serve you soup, take it. If you refuse it, they sneak in while you're asleep and shove it up your ass." A wife was making breakfast, frying eggs for her husband. Suddenly, he burst into the kitchen. "Careful, careful, add more butter. Oh my God, you're cooking too many at once, too many. Turn them now. We need more butter. Where are we going to get more butter? They're going to stick. Careful, careful." I said, "Be careful. You never listen when you're cooking. Never. Turn them. Hurry up. Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Don't forget to salt them. You always forget the salt. Use the salt. Use the salt. The salt." The wife stared at him, completely confused. "What is wrong with you? Do you think I don't know how to fry a couple of eggs?" He calmly replied, "I just wanted to show you what it feels like when I'm driving." One day in the hospital, two little boys were lying on stretchers next to each other outside of the operating room. The first boy leans over and asks, "What are you in for?" "I'm here to get my tonsils out, and I'm nervous," the second boy says. The first kid says, "You've got nothing to worry about. I had that done when I was 4. They put you to sleep, and when you wake up, they give you lots of ice cream and Jell-O. It's a breeze." "Well, what are you here for?" the second kid asks. "A circumcision." The first kid replies woefully. The second kid says, "Wow, I had that done when I was born, and I couldn't walk for a year." Several weeks after a young man had been hired, he was called into the personnel director's office. "What is the meaning of this?" the director asked. "When you applied for this job, you told us you had 5 years' experience. Now we discovered this is the first job you've ever held." "Well," the young man replied, "in your advertisement you said you wanted somebody with imagination." One night a fellow drove his secretary home after she had imbibed a little too much at an office reception. Although this was an innocent gesture, he decided not to mention it to his wife, who tended to get jealous easily. The next night the man and his wife were driving to a restaurant. Suddenly he looked down and spotted a high-heeled shoe half hidden under the passenger seat. Not wanting to be conspicuous, he waited until his wife was looking out her window before he scooped up the shoe and tossed it out of the car. With a sigh of relief, he pulled into the restaurant parking lot. That's when he noticed his wife squirming around in her seat. "Honey," she asked, "have you seen my other shoe?" Once, a lady asked Einstein to call her, but warned him her phone number was really hard to remember. "It's 24 to 361. "Got it. Repeat it back," she insisted. Einstein shrugged. "Of course I remembered. That's simple. 219 squared." One day I accidentally overturned my golf cart. Elizabeth, a very attractive and keen golfer who lived in a villa on the golf course, heard the noise and called out, "Are you okay? What's your name?" "I'm Phil, and I'm okay." "Thanks," I replied. "Phil, forget your troubles. Come to my villa, rest a while, and I'll help you get the cart up later." "That's mighty nice of you," I answered, "but I don't think my wife would like it." "Oh, come on," Elizabeth insisted. She was very pretty, very sexy, and persuasive, and I was weak. "Well, okay." I finally agreed and added, "But my wife won't like it." After a few restorative brandies and some creative putting lessons, I thanked my hostess. "I feel a lot better now, but I know my wife is going to be really upset." "Don't be silly," Elizabeth said with a smile. "She won't know anything. By the way, where is she?" "Under the cart," I said. A young man and an old woman are traveling by train, and after looking closely at the young man, the old woman leans forward and says, "Excuse me, young man, are you Jewish?" And he looks up from the book he's reading and politely replies, "No, ma'am, I'm not Jewish." A few minutes later, she leans forward again and says, "Excuse me, young man, are you sure you are not Jewish? And he looks up once again and politely but firmly replies, no, ma'am, I am not Jewish. There's a long silence. Then the old woman leans forward yet again and says, excuse me, young man, are you quite sure you're not Jewish? And the young man eye rolls inwardly, grits his teeth, and says, all right, yes, I am Jewish. And then there is silence for minutes. And then, that's funny, says the old woman. You don't look Jewish. A man rushes into a bar and says, quick, give me a pint of lager. No sooner does he finish that drink than he orders a whiskey and slams it down. As fast as the bartender is pouring the drinks, the man is knocking them back, one after the other. The bartender says, are you okay, buddy? What's brought this on? The man replies, man, I should not be drinking all this with what I've got. Holy smokes, replies the bartender, what have you got? The man replies, about $5. Sam's wife bought a new line of expensive cosmetics guaranteed to make her look younger. After a long session in front of the mirror applying the miracle products, she turned to him and asked, darling, honestly, what age would you say I am now? Sam looked her over carefully and said, looking at your skin, 20. Your hair is 18 inches long, and your figure, 25. Oh, you flatter. What are you after? She gushed. Hold on a minute. Honey, Sam interrupted. I haven't added them up yet. A blonde is pregnant and is practically 9 months along. She goes to see her doctor for a routine checkup, but she is worried. She asks, what if the baby starts coming and I can't get to the hospital in time? The doctor replies, well, women have been having babies for 1,000,000 years without a doctor in attendance. It's a very natural process. The first thing you do is assume the same position you were lying in when you got pregnant. The blonde interrupts with, do you mean with the left foot in the glove compartment and the right foot hanging out the window? A nun was sitting at the airport, waiting for her flight to Chicago. She looked over in the corner and saw one of those weight machines that tells your fortune and thought to herself, I'll give it a try and see what it tells me. She went over to the machine, stepped up on the scale, and put her nickel in. Out came a card that read, you are a nun. You weigh 128 pounds, and you're going to Chicago. The nun sat back down and told herself that the machine probably gives the same card to everyone. The more she thought about it, the more curious she got, so she decided to try it again. She went back to the machine and again put her nickel in. Out came a card that read, you are a nun. You weigh 128 pounds. You're going to Chicago, and you're going to play a fiddle. The nun says to herself, I know that is wrong. I have never played a musical instrument, even once in my life. She sat back down. From out of nowhere, a cowboy came over and sat down, putting his fiddle case on the seat between them. Without thinking, she opened the cowboy's case, took out the fiddle, and started playing beautiful music. Surprised at what she had done, she looked over at the machine, thinking, this is incredible. I've got to try this again. Back to the machine, she went, put in another nickel, and another card came out. It read, you are a nun. You weigh 128 pounds. You're going to Chicago, and you're going to break wind. Now she knows the machine is wrong, as she thought to herself. I've never broken wind in public a single time in my life. But getting down off the machine, she slipped, and as she was straining to keep herself from falling to the floor, she broke wind. Absolutely stunned, she sat back down and looked at the machine. She said to herself, this is truly remarkable. I got to try this again. She went back to the machine, put in another nickel, and another card came out. It read, you are a nun. You weigh 128 pounds. You have fiddled and farted around and missed your flight to Chicago. A wife arrived home after a long shopping trip and was horrified to find her husband in bed with a young, lovely thing. Just as she was about to storm out of the house, her husband stopped her with these words, before you leave, I want you to hear how this all came about. Driving home, I saw this young girl, looking poor and tired. I offered her a ride. She was hungry, so I brought her home and fed her some of the roast you had forgotten about in the refrigerator. Her shoes were worn out, so I gave her a pair of your shoes you didn't wear, because they were out of style. She was cold, so I gave her those new shoes you didn't wear, because they were out of style. She was cold, So I gave her that new birthday sweater you never wore even once because the color didn't suit you. Her slacks were worn out, so I gave her a pair of yours that you don't fit into anymore. Then as she was about to leave the house, she paused and asked, "Is there anything else that your wife doesn't use anymore?" And so, here we are. In an Anglican church, each service begins with a greeting. The officiating clergyman says, "The Lord be with you." The congregation used to respond by saying, "And with thy spirit." But with the modernizing of the liturgy, the minister now says, "The Lord be with you," and everyone responds with, "And also with you." One Sunday, a visiting bishop went to a church where the sound system was known to be old and unreliable. As he approached the microphone, he tapped it several times and finally said, "There's something wrong with this." Without hesitation, the whole congregation answered faithfully, "And also with you." A little girl was in church with her mother when she started feeling ill. "Mommy," she said, "can we leave now?" "No," her mother replied. "Well, I think I have to throw up," exclaimed the girl. "Then go out the front door and around to the back of the church and throw up behind a bush," said her mother. After about 60 seconds, the little girl returned to her seat. "Did you throw up?" her mother asked. "Yes," the little girl replied. "How could you have gone all the way to the back of the church and returned so quickly?" her mother asked. "I didn't have to go out of the church, Mommy," smiled her little girl proudly. "They have a box next to the front door that says, 'For the sick.'" One day, Einstein hopped onto a Berlin streetcar and, out of habit, immediately buried himself in a book. Without even looking up, he pulled out the coins he had pre-counted for the fare and handed them to the conductor. "There's not enough here," the conductor said. "That's impossible," Einstein replied, still glued to his book. "I'm telling you, it's short," the conductor insisted. Einstein shook his head as if to say no way. The conductor, now slightly irritated, counted it out loud. "Look, it's 15 pfennigs. You're 5 short." Einstein patted his pocket, found the missing coin, and handed it over a bit sheepish. The conductor smiled and said, "No worries, Grandpa. You just need to brush up on your arithmetic." In a small town, a person decided to open up a brothel, which was right opposite to a church. The church and its congregation started a campaign to block the brothel from opening with petitions and prayed daily against his business. Work progressed. However, when it was almost complete and was about to open a few days later, strong lightning struck the hotel, and it was burnt to the ground. The church folks were rather smug in their outlook after that, till the brothel owners sued the church authorities on the grounds that the church, through its congregation and prayers, was ultimately responsible for the destruction of his brothel, either through direct or indirect actions or means. In its reply to the court, the church vehemently denied all responsibility or any connection that their prayers were reasons for the act of God. As the case made its way into court, the judge looked over the paperwork at the hearing and commented, "I don't know how I'm going to decide this case, but it appears from the paperwork we have a brother who believes in the power of prayer, and we have an entire church that doesn't."
An elderly man walked into a store with a salesman wanted sign in a window. He walked up to the owner and said, "I want that job." "I don't know if this job would suit you because of your speaking impediment," said the owner. "I have a wife and 6 kids. I need this job," the man said. "Okay, here are 3 Bibles. Go out and sell them," the owner said. So the man went out and came back an hour later. "Here's your money," the older man said. The owner was impressed, so he gave the man an extra dozen Bibles and sent him out. The man came back in 2 hours later and said, "Here's your money." The owner said, "This is fantastic. You sold more Bibles in 3 hours than anyone has sold in a week. Tell me, what do you say to the people when they come to the door?" "Well," said the old man, "I ring the doorbell and say, 'Hello, madam. Do you want to buy this Bible, or do you want me to read it to you.
An overweight business associate of mine decided it was time to shed some excess pounds. He took his new diet seriously, even changing his driving route to avoid his favorite bakery. One morning, however, he arrived at work carrying a gigantic coffee cake. We all scolded him, but his smile remained cherubic. "This is a very special coffee cake," he explained. "I accidentally drove by the bakery this morning, and there in the window was a host of goodies. I felt this was no accident, so I prayed, 'Lord, if you want me to have one of those delicious coffee cakes, let me have a parking place directly in front of the bakery.' And sure enough," he continued, "the 8th time around the block, there it was." A dietitian was once addressing a large audience in Chicago. "The material we put into our stomachs is enough to have killed most of us sitting here years ago. Red meat is awful. Soft drinks erode your stomach lining. Chinese food is loaded with MSG. Vegetables can be disastrous, and none of us realizes the long-term harm caused by the germs in our drinking water. But there is one thing that is the most dangerous of all, and we all have eaten or will eat it. Can anyone here tell me what food it is that causes the most grief and suffering for years after eating it?" A 75-year-old man in the front row stood up and said, "Wedding cake." A kindergarten teacher handed out a coloring page to her class. On it was a picture of a duck holding an umbrella. The teacher told her class to color the duck in yellow and the umbrella green. However, Papu, the class rebel, colored the duck in a bright fire truck red. After seeing this, the teacher asked him, "Papu, how many times have you seen a red duck?" Young Papu replied with, "The same number of times I've seen a duck holding an umbrella."